Hello and welcome to Talk Like That. In the studio today is a musician who has been on both sides of the Atlantic. His name is Ciaran Mac Gowan and he's going to tell us more about his story and his musical journey. Welcome, Ciaran.
Nice to be here, Debbie.
How did you get into music?
I knew you'd ask me that one. There was music in the family. My mother was a singer, and given that she was born in 1918, by the 1930s, she was a grammar school girl. And there's an old picture of her singing into one of those old-fashioned home service microphones, the ones that are in little springs. And she's on a windy stage in McGory Park, and she's winning the All-Ireland Singing Feis in 1936. And there's this little blurry photo. So I grew up with my mammy singing, and I also grew up with constant classical records on in the house. So there was always music around. And she put me into Clonard Choir when I was about 8 as a little soprano, and violin lessons and piano lessons and all the rest of it. But in the end, my dad bought me a cheap £5 Czechoslovakian guitar for my 11th Christmas. And I didn't want a guitar, and I was a spoilt little brat, and I was very annoyed to have a guitar. I wanted walkie-talkies. But when I was done with all my presents, there was a little innocuous paper bag lying underneath the pile of presents. And in my spoilt preoccupation with why didn't I get walkie-talkies, I tossed out this paper bag, and lo and behold, there were walkie-talkies. And so that night, after someone showed me a couple of chords, I was talking to my mate up a street as a wee boy and pressing the button with my knees and playing very badly, "Oh My Darling Clementine."
So you learned to play guitar then when you got the guitar?
The walkie-talkies didn't last too long. The guitar lasted a lifetime. Yeah, that's what happened.
And from Oh My Darling, what did you learn to play on the guitar? How did you progress then?
Oh, thereafter it was Irish ballads, Come All Ye's. And then from there, as a boy, you're listening to whoever the rock and pop stars of the day were. And I just kind of missed the Beatles and the Stones because I was too young for that. But, I would be playing Paul Simon and Tom Paxton and such like, folk songs really. Yeah.
And why have you been taken with folk music? What is it that influences you or grips you about it?
It's not really that I'm taken with folk music. It's just that folk music is what everyone grows up. No matter what your culture is, you're going to hear your culture's folk music. It could be mariachi in Mexico, or it could be the very huge library of Irish drinking and Come All Ye songs, or who knows what. But, in my opinion, when you're singing a song with a guitar unaccompanied, you're a folk musician. And when you wrap a band around you, you are a rock and soul and jazz musician, depending on how you arrange things. So it's just natural that I grew up with Irish folk music. But I soon branched out after I started traveling when I was about in my early 20s, and ended up playing bars in France. And there was no Irish folk music there. It was all jazz. So I started getting heavily influenced by bossa nova and jazz and learning all these strange chords that were way out of the regular 3-chord Irish songs.
Yeah, I was going to go back to the folk thing. What do you like about folk music?
Well, I wouldn't say that I like anything particular about folk music generally, but I like everything about simple music, singing and writing and performing. And God knows there's a lot of dross out there. And so it's only if you have the best I'm not talking about myself, it's only the very best of them that we all say, oh, that's good. That's when you realize that someone world class, like I mentioned, Paul Simon, someone like that cuts through and you realize, oh, those are really well thought out lyrics and excellent musicianship. I'm attracted to that, and I try to do my best. And somewhere along the line in my younger days, I was made aware that people thought I was good, and so that encourages you. I mean, you should encourage everybody anyway, but I started to gain in confidence.
And you've been influenced by the folk music, then by the jazz music in France. And what
Yeah.
other influences have there been?
Everything. Heavily influenced by the likes of Van Morrison, Chris Rea, a wonderful writer from Yorkshire. Bossa Nova, I discovered that in France, and there's a heavy Bossa Nova influence in things that I do. When I moved to the United States, I started playing regularly with a jazz band. It wasn't my band, they would invite me in to sing. And if I played guitar, I had to keep up with them, so I would learn a great deal more about theory and scales and chords that I ever knew existed. And so just influenced by everything.
So you become very crafted at playing guitar and music, singing and music, your musicality,
Well, I'm well practiced, but only to the limit of my talent. Other people have faster fingers or smoother fingers or whatever, but I do as best as I can. I think the real reason I'm in music is because of singing. I'm getting older now and I'm losing my range, but from the earliest of years, like I said, my mum had me in the choir singing the Hallelujah chorus and such, and was always singing. So I enjoyed singing and used to be able to sing like a fish, up, down, backwards, forwards, like a fish would swim in the water any old way. But I'm getting older now and I'm realizing we bit tight in the high notes. What are you going to do?
Should we talk about the pieces that you've written about musically then? Do you want to talk more about those?
Oh, I've written all sorts of stuff. I try not to write love songs. Of course I write love songs. Anybody who picks up a guitar and strums a few chords is going to write a love song. But I try to come up with other scenarios. Love songs are fine, but I also simply when I find that a musical idea presents itself to me, and that's always by virtue of just sitting, noodling with the guitar, keeping yourself in shape, your fingers, your chords, your changes, all that, and something comes along because you're in the middle of doing it, and something comes along that suggests to you a melody, and you realize, oh, there's a song that's kind of rocky, or that's kind of jazzy, or that's a slow, sad air, or whatever it is. And then you're faced suddenly with the notion that you've got a good song on your hands, leastwise from the point of view of melody and chord and accompaniment and rhythm. But what in the name of goodness are you going to write about? And so that's why I say, I always think, let's stay away from you, me, love, all that. Let's think of something. So I'll either have something on my mind anyway, or I'll come out with a random line, like one of the songs I'll play for you today begins with I'm watching the weather. And so that immediately leads you off into some hopefully evolving story that will be of interest, and I'm going to play you that one. Watching the weather, hoping for rain, just like the farmer does when he plants his seeds again. My soul is ready for rain, hoping for justice, hoping that love will come again. Bring me a healer, bring me a priest, bring me a fountain, bring me a feast, bring me the weatherman, bring me the beast, bring me thunder and lightning and sheets, bring me the rain. My lips are dry as this ground. I hear the sound of thunder, the rolling of hooves as they're dragging the chariots round. Bring me a knife, bring me a stone. I have to sharpen my blade, 'cause I live in my head and this hurt won't leave me alone. said a prayer. God knows that's hard. God only knows if he's listening to a voice in the distance, 'cause nobody here gives a damn. I have been hurt beyond words. Words are a scourge. They tear at your soul, they tear at your heart, they tear at you. Bring me your healer, bring me your priest, bring me your fountain, your feast. Bring me the weatherman, bring me the beast, but bring me thunder, lightning, and sheets. Bring me the rain. I'm watching the weather, I'm hoping for rain, just like the farmer does when he plants his seeds again. My soul is ready for rain, hoping for justice, hoping that love will come again. Bring me your healer, bring me your priest, bring me your fountain, bring me your feast. Bring me the weatherman, bring me the beast, but bring me thunder, lightning, and sheets. Bring me the rain. The other song that I'll play you today begins with the line, and I just pulled this out of the air or out of some subconscious thinking. It begins with the fact that there's a woman working in the chip shop across the road. There's a lady in the chip shop, she's been working there for years. Her husband passed away this morning after many months of fears. Some of us die young, no rhyme, no reason, just a number. Be careful how you spend this time. I had a friend at work, he called me, said he wasn't feeling well. To the doctor he did go, but she couldn't break the spell. 7 weeks, that's all, until he answered cancer's call. Be careful how you spend this time. Hey, good news, my sister called me, she's a grandma once again. To the church to pour the water, everybody cries amen. But Jesus and the saints, I'll never understand this game. 'Cause one goes out and one comes in, one goes out and one comes in, one goes out and one comes in. Someone talks about original sin. What's that about? Hey son, I'm just 18, my daddy, he once said to me. 79 and pushing 80, but inside he was a teen. Yeah. But on the day he died, I grew up in sight. Be careful how you spend this time. I remember long ago I was a kid, it seemed so far away. And then I had some kids myself, and that's sure that like yesterday. 'Cause when you're young it crawls, when you're old it falls like leaves, like leaves. Be careful how you spend this time. In the chip shop on the corner, there's a woman works for years. Her husband passed away this morning after many months of fears. 'Cause some of us die young. No rhyme, no reason, just a number. A number. Be careful how you spend this. Be careful how you spend this time. Well, recently I've been doing some small gigs. I've been off the scene in Belfast for years because I've been living and working in California, and I've been over there for 34 years, although I hope I don't have an American accent because I come home as often as possible. But I found employment out there as a professional photographer and all that. But I retired from that recently after many years, and I'm now spending a great deal more time at home, thank God, because I love being home. And I never understand people who say this place is awful. That's nonsense. This place is brilliant. But if you get tired of it, you know, here's my advice: go away for a while and then come back. But Belfast is great, and I love coming home and being here. So I'm just getting back into it, and I've been playing little places. I'm picking up little things like that. I did when I was younger, before I went to California. I used to open for the big acts that would come here and play major venues. But right now I'm just trucking along in the wee bars.
And how do you find the Belfast audiences or Bangor audiences and Fealties or Northern Irish audiences compared to your Californian or American audiences?
If you're talking about a concert setting, there's no difference. People are there because they want to listen. If you're talking about a bar setting, there's no difference because people are there to drink and they don't give a damn what you're doing in the corner. So I never do that. All musicians pay their dues playing in bars to people that aren't there for listening. I only play little concert venues.
When you're out playing, do you get a lot of response, you know, from your playing or feedback, you know, from people?
Yeah. People do enjoy it, and they have the various people who've put me on these small places I've mentioned. They've put me on already. This is me coming back because I've been invited back. I'm pleased to say that musicians of note here in Northern Ireland. So I'm glad to say that I'm making connections in the music world now that I'm back. The influences are primarily, as we said a little earlier, primarily just being from this very musical country. But then because I went traveling, and I went traveling for that very reason, because I was always broke here. I was always a 50 quid gig somewhere, or a £50 punt gig somewhere. And actually I ended up traveling because I played a gig in Monaghan. This is bloody well 40 years ago. I'm getting old. And it was for 50 punt. And the barman only wanted to give me 40 because there wasn't too many people in the bar. And I had then to drive all the way back to Belfast with whatever money was paying for the gas, etc. And I got so frustrated. And my girlfriend, who was with me at the time, she had a steady job, 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it was, as a teacher. And she was complaining because it was 2 in the morning and she has to get back to Belfast and we're in Monaghan and she has to get up at 7 a.m. and this is dreadful. And I was listening to yakety, yakety, yak, and I screeched to a halt in the middle of County Monaghan, or I don't know if we were over the border yet. And I jumped out of their car, opened the back door, grabbed my guitar case. I was a real prima donna, ran into the headlights, opened the case, grabbed the guitar, and smashed it to smithereens.
And that was it.
And
that was it.
Never played again. I was just done with it. After that day that I smashed my guitar, I went off to France. I met a pretty girl, and she was a photographer. And lo and behold, I fell in love with the camera. And to my great astonishment, I took some pictures back here of Belfast wall murals and all those violent wall murals that pepper the walls. Some of them are not so violent these days. A lot of them are very political and thoughtful. But back in the day, there used to be really, really, really graphic, violent wall murals. And it was in the early days of the explosion of wall murals during the hunger strike and internment and stuff like that. And I ran around taking pictures on both sides of our divide and presented these colour slides to Gamma Press in Paris, who then syndicated them around the world. And I ended up realising, no, I'm getting paid by the South China Post. I'm getting paid by the Washington Post or the New York Times for photographs. And I realised, oh.
Yes.
And I went, right you be. I can make a living at this.
Yeah, for a normal scene for you in many ways.
And ended up not touching music hardly at all for many years because I was just so happy to be earning a living. Also in an artistic, creative way. I could have been starving in photography as well, but I wasn't. I ran into a guy in Hollywood in Los Angeles one night in a bar, and he asked me if I would photograph a couple of his recording studios that he was designing. And Los Angeles is full of recording studios. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of little backroom recording studios. And I thought, okay, sure. And he agreed to meet me a few days later, and we would go to one of his recording studios and discuss the technical implications of shooting and lighting and all the rest of it. And after I met him, we walked into Capitol Recording Studios. I think it's on La Brea, not sure. And after that we went to Sony, and after that we went to Polygram, and it went on and on like that. And you know, there's an element of luck in everybody's life, and I ended up earning a living as a photographer in the music business, you know.
Well, you've done a great job. And can we talk about your album? Tell me about the album that you have.
Oh, this little album, well, I brought this, my one and only album, which I made some years ago because I've been in photography, and there's a new one in the works now that I'm retired. And this little album here is something that I put out when I was opening for Bob Dylan and Van Morrison in Botanic Park in 1998. And there's only a few left. This is for you.
Oh, thank you very much, Ciaran. Out of Belfast, it's called. Yes.
Called Out of Belfast, yeah.
Fantastic. And tell me a wee bit more about some of the songs on it.
Well, I have to tell you how that album started, because years before, I used to plague Terry Hooley, go around to his shop and say, hey, you know, can I make a record for Good Vibrations? And Terry was dealing with all the punk bands, and I'm this melodic singer that plays jazz chords and stuff. It's not punk. And I would pester him. And one day he come around to where I lived, which was at the time was number 10 University Street. It's been knocked down since. But there was a knock on my door on a Saturday morning, and I lived 3 stories up, and I went down and opened the door, and there's Terry there. And he says, there's 300 quid. Go and make a single.
Fantastic.
And I was like, 300 quid was a lot of money. That was back 1980. And I'm, okay. And as it so happened, I had opened for a girl called Melanie Harold in the Whitla Hall during Queen's Festival. And her backing guitarists became friends with me. You know, we went round to somebody's house, as you do, and we stayed up till 2, 3 in the morning playing guitar. But I phoned these guys up and they said, don't be spending your money in Belfast, come on over here to London. To cut a long story short, these guys were from the Jerry Rafferty Band. So my first single I made with the Jerry Rafferty Band, minus Jerry.
And finally, what advice would you give to someone who's starting out as a musician today?
Someone who's starting out as a musician today, one of the first pieces of advice I would give them, because my son is starting out as a musician, and I've told him, go take lessons. A lot of people, especially in folk music, they learn by ear, and guitarists learn by ear, and they'll play lots and lots of chords and play lots and lots of songs. But actually, I took years to learn blues and jazz and bossa, and took years and years and years. And yet recently, because of the advent of YouTube, you know, and everybody knows what I'm about to say, you go on YouTube and you see, it doesn't matter whether you're learning to weld or play music, there's all of this stuff out there. So that would be my first advice, is to, you know, go to YouTube, but even better, get someone to actually give you a structure and make demands upon you. Because if I show you a minor pentatonic scale today or something like that, and you say, oh, that's very nice, if I don't make the demand that you are, go practice it and present it to me in a week's time, you know, you won't do it. So when you get a teacher, it usually puts that demand on you. And the second advice I would give them is that you can turn round and round and round and round on the local circuit till you're blue in the face, or maybe you're happy-faced about it, of course, if that's what makes you happy. But if you're trying to reach higher, of course you got to turn in the local £50 a gig circuit and cut your teeth and get used to playing in front of people.
And can you give us your contact details for where people can see your music and hear it?
Well, if they type my name correctly, which is a difficult one for, well, not for Irish people, obviously. For Northern Irish and Irish people it's not difficult, but Ciaran is spelled with a C, so it's Ciaran, and the one that'll get it actually is the Mac. It's not MC, it's MAC. I've done this online, and if I type MC, I don't come up, and if I type MAC, they'll find me at CiaranMacGowan.com, and they'll find me on YouTube.
That's great to see, Ciaran, and thank you so much for coming into the studio today. It's a really interesting story, really interesting story you have. Thank you.
Real pleasure to meet you. Thanks a lot.